They thought they had you caged, didn't they? Thought their venom would paralyze you, that their whispers would drown you, that their traps, their schemes, their cunning little games would break your will. But you didn't just survive. Number you outseamed the snakes, outran the fire, outlasted the noise. You stood in the eye of chaos. You made silence your shield and pain your armor. They played dirty, so you learned to play smarter. They built illusions, so you shattered them with truth. They threw you into the dark, hoping you'd never claw your way out. But they forgot. Some people are forged in the dark. Some people become the storm. And now look at you. They threw poison at you, but you turned it into power. They closed every door they could find, so you built your own damn house, brick by brick, scar by scar. This isn't about survival anymore. This is about dominance. This is about turning every betrayal into a lesson, every lie into a blueprint, every failure into fuel. They underestimated what you are made of. They didn't see what was growing in the ashes. But now the fire's behind you, and it's their turn to feel the heat. They played the game thinking you were just another pawn, but you were the player. And now, you are the board. You beat them at their own game, not because you played fair. Fair was never part of the contract. Fair is a myth told by the weak to comfort themselves when they lose. You learned how to bleed without crying, how to fall without breaking, how to walk through hell and keep your soul intact. You adapted, you evolved. You didn't just survive the system, you became a glitch in it, a crack in the mirror, a virus in their machine. Every time they thought they had you, you slipped through their fingers. Every time they whispered your name with disdain, you carved it deeper into the world with fire. You didn't ask for mercy. You demanded respect. You didn't wait to be chosen. You made yourself undeniable. And that noise, the doubt, the laughter, the voices trying to bury your truth, that noise never stopped, did it? It followed you like a shadow. It tried to blur your vision, make you question every step. But you kept walking. You walked until the voices turned into echoes. You walked until they couldn't follow. You walked through storms that would have broken lesser beings. And when the dust settled, when the silence returned, when you looked around at the wreckage and realized you were still standing, that's when you knew. You were built for this, not just to withstand the world, but to rise above it. Not just to play the game, but to change it entirely. There's power in being the one they couldn't break. There's darkness in you now. Not weakness, not corruption, but depth, sharp edges, hardened resolve, the kind of darkness that washes and waits, that learns, that plans, that strikes only when the time is right. You're not who you used to be. You're something else now, something they never expected, something they can't contain. They saw your kindness and mistook it for softness. They saw your patience and thought it was weakness. But now they know. Now they feel the shift. You walk into a room and it changes. You speak and the air thickens. Because now there's weight behind your words. Now there's truth etched into your presence. And they can't deny it anymore. You earned every inch of this. You clawed your way through betrayal, heartbreak, humiliation, and fear. You faced the mirror and didn't look away. You faced yourself and won. You beat them at their own game, not because you became one of them, but because you mastered yourself. You stopped chasing approval and started building conviction. You stopped flinching at pain and started feeding on it. Every time they tried to break you, they taught you how to bend. Every time they tried to erase you, they made your story stronger. And now you wear every scar like a medal, every loss like a lesson, every silence like a song only warriors can hear. You outran the fire, yes, but not to escape it. You outran it to lead it, to command it, to become the flame that devours lies, melts facades, burns through illusions. Now when they look at you, they don't see the person they thought they buried. They see the reckoning they summoned, the storm they never prepared for, the result of every cruelty they thought would go unanswered. You were never the villain, but they needed you to be. They painted you with shadows, so no one would see your light. They dragged your name through mud because they feared its echo. They whispered about you in corners because they couldn't stand your presence in the room. But they forgot something ancient, something primal, that silence is a weapon and solitude is a forge. And while they celebrated your absence, you were sharpening your mind, toughening your soul, feeding the fire they thought they'd extinguished. They laughed when you fell. They clapped when you bled. But they never stayed long enough to witness your rise, because now they can't look you in the eye. Now, the same mouths that mocked your struggle are choking on your success. You don't need applause anymore. You don't need validation. You don't need them to see you now because you see yourself. And that is where the war was won. Not in the spotlight, not on the battlefield, but in the silence of your own mind, in the relentless conversations you had with the part of you that wanted to quit, in the cold nights where sleep ran from you and thoughts stalked you like wolves. You beat them because you never stopped walking. You beat them because even when your hands were trembling and your voice was cracking and your heart was breaking, you kept showing up. You showed up for yourself. They underestimated the war within you. Thought it would consume you, thought it would make you crumble. But they didn't know that some people are born from war, that some souls come alive when tested. You outschemed the snakes, not by matching their lies, but by staying 10 moves ahead. You knew how they moved. You learned their patterns. You watched as they slithered through smiles and promises, weaving traps made of charm and deceit. But you stopped playing by their rules. You wrote your own code. You built your own map. And when they tried to poison your path, you drank it like medicine and kept moving. Because you are not afraid of venom anymore. You've tasted worse. And the fire, that hell they threw you into thinking it would devour you, it only made you brighter. They watched from the sidelines thinking they'd see you burn. But you walked out of the flames carrying your own ashes, carved into something stronger, something more real. The fire didn't take you. It introduced you to yourself. It burned away the masks, the illusions, the expectations. It revealed what was always there beneath the fear. Power, stillness, fury that knows where it belongs. You didn't escape the fire. You became it. You are the heat they can't stand, the truth they can't swallow, the light they can't look at. You beat them at their own game. You did it quietly, consistently, ruthlessly. You didn't need to announce your comeback. You didn't need to scream. You let your silence make the loudest noise. Every success, a blade. Every victory, a scar healed. Every forward step, a message to the ones who tried to erase you. I am not what you said I was. I am not who you wanted me to be. I am what I chose to become. And no, I didn't become soft. I didn't become forgiving. I became precise. I became surgical with my focus, merciless with my intent. Because this world doesn't owe you fairness. It owes you nothing. And that's the most freeing thing of all. When you stop waiting for the world to hand you justice, you begin to craft it with your own two hands, with blood, with patience, with clarity. You stopped waiting for a seat at the table and started building your own damn throne. Not from gold, from bones, from pain, from the pieces they broke off you, thinking you wouldn't notice, but you noticed. You felt every fracture, and now they're part of your foundation. You're not just standing, you're rooted, you're grounded, You've turned every failure into concrete beneath your feet. You don't need to prove anything anymore, but you still will. Not for them, for you. Because now you're addicted to growth. Now you're obsessed with the silence after the storm. Now you thrive where others tremble. You no longer fear being alone because you've met the most dangerous version of yourself in that solitude, and you liked it. You trusted it, and that's why they can't reach you now. That's why their old tricks fall flat. Their whispers don't echo here anymore. Their shadows don't stretch this far. You outlasted the noise because you became deaf to doubt, because you taught yourself to listen only to the truth beneath the chaos. You saw through the flashing lights, the empty praise, the cheap shots. You refused to let the world define your worth, and that was the beginning of the end for them, because now you walk different. Now you speak with the weight of experience, with the clarity of war, with the power of someone who has walked through fire and didn't flinch. You move like someone who's already seen the worst and decided to stay standing anyway. They see you now and wonder how. They ask themselves how you made it, how you're still standing, how you turned every setback into strategy. But they weren't there, were they? They didn't see the nights you swallowed pain like glass and kept your face calm. They didn't hear the roar in your head screaming at you to stop while your body kept moving anyway. They didn't feel your heart pounding under the weight of fear, disappointment, betrayal. They only see the steel now, the polish, the edge. But you remember what it took. You remember what you paid. And that's why you're not afraid anymore. Because once you've been buried alive, the dirt on your hands doesn't scare you. You wear it like armor. This world, this game, they taught you to fight without fists, to cut without blades, to conquer without permission. You mastered the long war, the psychological war, the war where you win by not breaking, the war where you win by outlasting. They set traps for you, thinking you were a rabbit, but you were the wolf. You watched, you learned, you adapted. They kept waiting for you to snap, to give in, to act out, to crumble under pressure. But you didn't. You endured. You sharpened your silence into a weapon. You took every insult and embedded it into your bones. You built a skeleton out of rejection. You stitched your skin back together with defiance. Now look at you, walking proof that resilience is the deadliest art form of all. And no, you didn't forgive. Not because you're incapable, but because they never earned it. Forgiveness is a luxury for those who've repented, but snakes don't change. They just shed skins. And you learn to stop feeding things that bite. You stop throwing pearls to those who only ever saw stones. You stopped explaining yourself to people who only ever wanted to misunderstand you. That was part of the shift, the cold, brutal realization that not everyone deserves your warmth. Some people only came close to drain you. Some people only applauded when you were bleeding. And once you saw that truth, you changed. You stopped speaking. You started watching. You became deliberate. Now, your silence isn't absence. It's control. It's calculation. You don't react. You respond. You don't argue. You dismantle. And when you walk away, it's not in defeat. It's because you've already won. You beat them at their own game by refusing to let the game define you. You played a bigger game, one with no referees, no applause, no instant gratification. The game where victory is walking away with your soul intact. The game where success is the fact that you're still here, evolved, armed, ruthless when necessary, and yet untouched at the core. The noise? It's still there, of course. It always will be. Whispers of people trying to rewrite your story, shadows of past selves trying to pull you back, but they can't reach you anymore. Not where you are now. You outgrew the noise. You tower over it. You don't just walk away from the past. You carry it, use it, honor it. Every mistake, every misstep, every scar, it's all in you. And that's the difference. They tried to run from their pain. You used yours like a blueprint. You mapped your scars. You traced your regrets. You learned where the cracks were and filled them with fire. You don't need revenge. You became the reminder. You don't need to speak your name. It's written in the silence they fear. Every time they hear of your success, it stings. Not because you succeeded, but because you weren't supposed to. Because you were supposed to stay quiet, stay broken, stay small. But you didn't. You grew teeth. You grew purpose. You became something they can't touch, can't tame, can't bury. And now they fear what they built, because they were part of your making. They were part of the storm that forged you. And now, the storm answers to no one. You beat them at their own game, not by stooping to their level, but by rising above their ceiling. You broke the cycle. You refused to be another casualty in their narrative. You tore yourself out of that script and wrote your own ending. And it was bloody, and it was ugly, and it was glorious, because it was real, because it was yours. No one gave it to you. No one handed it down. You took it. You stole it back from the jaws of defeat, from the mouths of those who swore you were finished, from the hands of those who tried to cage you in fear. You burned their blueprints. You built your own tower. Now they look up and choke on the smoke. They can't reach you now. Not because you ran, but because you climbed. They stayed in the pit, playing their games, biting their own tails in endless loops. But you kept moving. You kept growing. And now your silence is thunder. Your breath is fire. Your presence is judgment. You don't need to fight for space anymore. You are the space. You are the reason people shift when you walk in. You are the weight that bends the room. Because you did what they couldn't. You didn't just survive. You transformed. You out-schemed the snakes. You outran the fire. You outlasted the noise. And now you're standing here not asking for recognition, not begging for applause, but simply existing as proof that nothing they did worked. And that's the real punishment. Because people like them don't understand silence. They don't understand strength that doesn't need to shout. They don't understand presence that doesn't demand. They understand power, and you became it. You became everything they feared, but were too small to admit, because you learned what they never could. That real strength isn't loud. It's quiet. It's patient. It's the one who waits in the shadows and still chooses the perfect moment to strike. Not for revenge, not for applause, but because it is time. Because your moment is here and you earned it with every second they thought you were wasting. You earned it with every breath. They tried to suffocate with every step. They mocked with every second they thought you were falling, when really you were rising inch by inch, wound by wound, moment by brutal moment. They don't get to write your legacy. You do, and you're writing it in stone, in scars, in fire. You're carving it into the sky with everything they thought would end you, because you turned pain into poetry and blood into bricks. And now the house you built cannot be burned, because you are the flame. And when they come knocking like they always do, pretending they never turned their backs, pretending they always believed, pretending they didn't laugh, when you were broken, you won't need to say a word. Your life will be the answer. Your actions will be the sentence. Your silence will be the verdict, and they'll feel it deeper than any speech, because nothing haunts like the success of the one they tried to silence. Nothing stings like the strength of the one they discarded. You are that haunting now. You are that sting. You are the ghost in their stories, the fire in their memory, the weight in their throat, and the shadow in their reflection, because you force them to confront what they created, and they don't like what they see. Because what they see is the version of you they swore could never exist. What they see is the consequence of their cruelty, the byproduct of their arrogance, the echo of their dismissal. They see it in your walk, in your eyes, in the way you no longer flinch at the things that used to break you. You became untouchable, not because you're invincible, but because you learned how to rebuild faster than they could destroy you. And that is the highest form of power, the ability to regenerate, to evolve, to rise without permission. This isn't just about survival anymore. This is about transcendence. This is about walking through hell, and not just making it out, but mapping the path, so no one ever traps you again. This is about knowing every turn, every betrayal, every crack in the walls, and never fearing the dark again, because you've memorized it, you've claimed it, and now the shadows bow to you, because they remember when you used to cry in them, when you used to doubt yourself, when you used to ask why me, but now you don't ask anymore. Now you say, try me, and the world listens, because the fire in your voice is louder than their doubts. They called you dramatic, they called you weak, they called you angry, bitter, broken, too much, too quiet, too loud, too soft, too hard. But they missed the truth underneath all of it. They missed the will. They missed the resolve. They missed the fact that under all their labels, you were still moving, still breathing, still building, and now they can't define you anymore because you broke their language and replaced it with something they don't understand, yet something raw, something real, something that doesn't need approval to exist. And maybe you still carry the weight. Maybe the scars still sting. Maybe the nights are still long and the silence is still sharp. But the difference now is that you know who you are in the dark. You know who you are when the noise fades and the world turns its back again, because it will. Again, that's what the world does. But this time you're ready. This time, you don't need anyone to clap for you, or catch you, or name you. This time, you are your own storm, and your own shelter, your own weapon, and your own sanctuary, and nothing they throw at you now can match what you've already survived. So let them whisper, let them wonder, let them rewrite the story you already finished. Let them watch as you walk past their expectations, like smoke through fingers, because you're not playing their game anymore. You're building something they can't reach, something that doesn't require their rules, their metrics, their recognition. You're building legacy, and it doesn't need translation, because it's felt, not heard, seen, not explained. You beat them at their own game, and that's the truth they'll carry forever. Not just that you won, but that you won your way with your soul, intact, with your scars on display, with your silence louder than any scream, with your fire still burning, not out of revenge but out of purpose. And now the only game left is the one you write, the one you shape, the one you live, and you don't owe anyone a damn explanation, because your existence is proof that you are not to be buried, you are not to be silenced, you are not to be broken. You are the living answer to every person who thought you wouldn't make it, and you didn't just make it. You rose, you ruled, you endured, you became the storm, and now you are the fire.